The old 1967 Mustang barely rolled into the parking lot, coughing smoke like it was taking its final breath. Its faded blue paint was scratched, one headlight hung loose, and the engine rattled so loudly that employees turned to stare. Then the billionaire CEO laughed in front of everyone and said, "That junk belongs in a scrapyard, not outside my company." The crowd laughed with him. But the single dad behind the wheel didn't argue. He simply looked at his daughter sitting beside him, smiled quietly, and said, "Just give me 30 days." Nobody knew those words would soon shake the entire city. Before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Kind Soul Stories for more emotional and unforgettable stories that touch the heart. Cold morning air drifted through the crowded streets as Ethan Cole drove his faded 1967 Mustang toward downtown, the engine coughing and rattling with every mile. The car's once beautiful blue paint had peeled under years of rain and heat, and rust covered the edges like scars from a long battle. Inside the car, however, everything felt warm because Lily sat beside her father holding a small lunchbox on her lap, smiling despite their difficult life. Ethan glanced at her and forced a tired smile back, even though dark circles hung beneath his eyes from working 2 jobs. Since losing his wife 3 years earlier, life had become a non-stop struggle of bills, exhaustion and sacrifice. Still, he never allowed Lily to see him break. "One day things will get better," he always told her, even when he barely believed it himself. That morning carried a tiny spark of hope because Ethan had finally received a temporary mechanic contract at Blackridge Motors, the richest automobile company in the city. As the giant glass building appeared ahead, Ethan tightened his grip on the steering wheel nervously. Expensive luxury cars filled the parking lot like shining trophies, making his old Mustang look like a forgotten relic from another world. Employees standing outside immediately noticed the noisy car rolling toward them, and whispers spread quickly. Some laughed quietly, while others pulled out phones to record the embarrassing sight. Ethan tried ignoring them, but Lily slowly lowered her eyes toward the floor, clearly hearing every cruel comment. Before Ethan could park, a sleek black sports car stopped nearby, and out stepped Victor Langston, the billionaire CEO of Blackridge Motors. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, Victor stared at the Mustang with open disgust before bursting into loud laughter. "You actually drove that thing here?" he mocked, making nearby employees laugh with him. He circled the Mustang slowly as if inspecting garbage on the street. "I didn't know museums allowed broken exhibits to escape." More laughter erupted across the parking lot. Ethan felt humiliation burn deep inside him, but he remained silent for Lily's sake. Victor smirked arrogantly and tapped the rusty hood. "Face it," he said, coldly. "That car is dead." The crowd laughed again, but Ethan gently placed his hand on the Mustang and looked directly into Victor's eyes. His voice stayed calm, steady, and strangely confident. "No," he said softly. "People just stopped believing in it." Then, after one heavy moment of silence, Ethan added words nobody there would ever forget. "Give me 30 days. That night, while the city lights faded into silence and most people rested peacefully in warm homes, Ethan Cole stood alone inside his small garage, staring at the broken 1967 Mustang beneath a dim, flickering bulb. The garage smelled of oil, metal, and dust collected over many difficult years. Old tools hung from cracked wooden walls, and rainwater dripped slowly through a corner of the roof into a rusted bucket. Ethan ran his hand gently across the Mustang's faded body, remembering the days when his father proudly drove the car through the city with laughter filling the seats. Back then, life felt simple, full of hope and family. Now, the same car looked exhausted, almost forgotten, just like Ethan sometimes felt himself. But Victor Langston's cruel words kept echoing in his mind. "That car is dead." Ethan tightened his fists and shook his head. "No," he whispered quietly to himself. "Not yet." From that moment forward, every night became a battle against time. After finishing long shifts as a mechanic during the day and food deliveries at night, Ethan returned home exhausted, but instead of sleeping, he walked straight into the garage. Lily often sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket, watching her father work tirelessly with grease-covered hands and determined eyes. Sparks flew through the darkness as Ethan removed damaged engine parts piece by piece, carefully rebuilding the Mustang with patience and love. Some nights he became so tired he nearly collapsed, yet he refused to stop. Lily noticed everything. One evening she softly asked, "Dad, why does this car matter so much?" Ethan paused for a long moment before sitting beside her on the cold floor. "Because people give up too easily," he answered gently. "When something looks broken, the world throws it away. But sometimes broken things still have life inside them." Lily looked toward the Mustang quietly and smiled. Days passed and rumors about Ethan spread across the city. Employees from Blackridge Motors laughed about the poor mechanic wasting time on junk, while Victor continued mocking him during meetings. But inside the tiny garage, something incredible slowly began happening. Beneath layers of rust and damage, the Mustang's true beauty returned piece by piece. Ethan sold personal belongings to buy rare parts. He skipped meals to save money, and worked through pain that made his hands tremble. Then one stormy night, while searching through old boxes left by his late father, Ethan discovered hidden documents proving the Mustang once belonged to a legendary street racer from 1969. His heart pounded with disbelief. Suddenly this wasn't just an old car anymore. It was history, waiting for a second chance. The morning of the Grand City Auto Showcase arrived with excitement buzzing through every street downtown. Huge banners hung from buildings. Reporters crowded the sidewalks, and thousands of people gathered to witness the most luxurious automobile event the city had ever hosted. Expensive Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and custom-built hypercars gleamed beneath bright sunlight, while wealthy owners proudly posed for cameras. In the center of it all stood Victor Langston beside his newest masterpiece, a silver supercar worth millions of dollars. Dressed in an elegant designer suit, Victor smiled confidently as reporters surrounded him asking questions. "This car represents perfection," he declared proudly. "Power, intelligence, and the future of engineering." The crowd applauded loudly while cameras flashed non-stop. Nobody doubted Victor would dominate the event. Then suddenly, from far beyond the cheering crowd, a deep engine roar echoed across the street. The sound was powerful, raw, and impossible to ignore. Conversations stopped instantly. Heads turned toward the entrance. Slowly, the restored 1967 Mustang rolled into view like a legend returning from the past. Sunlight reflected beautifully across its flawless dark blue paint, while the polished chrome gleamed brighter than any modern luxury car nearby. The engine growled with pure strength, shaking the ground beneath stunned spectators. Silence spread through the crowd as disbelief covered every face. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "Isn't that the same broken car?" another voice said in shock. Ethan stepped out wearing simple jeans and a work shirt stained with faint grease marks, completely different from the wealthy businessmen surrounding him. Beside him stood Lily, holding his hand proudly, her eyes shining with happiness. Reporters rushed toward Ethan immediately, while cameras focused entirely on the Mustang. Even experienced mechanics walked around the vehicle, speechless, unable to believe the transformation. Then an elderly man suddenly pushed through the crowd with tears filling his eyes. His hands trembled as he stared at the Mustang's front emblem. "I know this car," he whispered emotionally. This was the Phantom Mustang, the undefeated street racer from 1969. Gasps spread across the event. Within minutes, social media exploded with videos of Ethan and the legendary Mustang. Attention completely shifted away from Victor's expensive hypercar, and for the first time in years, the billionaire looked powerless. Later that afternoon, judges announced a live performance race between selected vehicles. Victor entered confidently, determined to reclaim the spotlight, while Ethan quietly accepted the challenge. Engines roared as the race began. Victor's supercar launched aggressively ahead, but halfway through the track, smoke suddenly burst from beneath its hood. The crowd gasped loudly. Seconds later, Ethan's Mustang thundered past with unstoppable power and crossed the finish line perfectly. The entire city erupted into deafening cheers while Victor stood frozen in humiliation, watching the man he mocked become the hero everyone admired. Only 30 days earlier, Ethan Cole had been the man people laughed at in a parking lot. A struggling single father driving a broken car everyone believed belonged in a scrapyard. But now, after the unbelievable victory at the Grand City Auto Showcase, his story had spread across the entire country. News channels replayed videos of the legendary Mustang roaring across the finish line, while social media users called Ethan the man who brought a legend back to life. Reporters gathered outside his small garage every day hoping for interviews, and car collectors offered him enormous amounts of money for the restored 1967 Mustang. Yet despite the sudden fame, Ethan remained exactly the same humble man he had always been. Every morning, he still made breakfast for Lily before school, still worked with grease-covered hands in his garage, and still smiled kindly at strangers who came to meet him. To Ethan, the Mustang had never been about money or attention. It was proof that broken things and broken people could still rise again when someone believed in them. 3 days after the event, an unexpected visitor arrived at Ethan's garage. A sleek black car stopped outside, and Victor Langston stepped out alone without security guards, cameras, or reporters. For the first time, the billionaire CEO looked uncomfortable. He slowly walked toward the Mustang parked inside the garage and stared at it quietly for several seconds. "I came to buy it," Victor finally said in a low voice. "Name any price." Ethan looked at the car for a moment before shaking his head gently. "It's not for sale," he replied calmly. Victor nodded slowly, almost as if he expected that answer. The proud arrogance that once filled his face was completely gone. "I mocked you because I thought success only belonged to people with money," Victor admitted quietly. "But you built something my wealth could never create." Ethan stayed silent while Victor looked down at the floor in shame. Before the heavy silence became uncomfortable, Lily walked into the garage carrying 2 cups of coffee. Innocently, she handed one to Victor with a warm smile. "Dad says kindness matters more than mistakes," she said softly. Victor stared at the little girl speechlessly, deeply affected by her words. That moment changed him forever. Weeks later, Victor publicly launched a citywide program, offering free mechanic training and financial support to struggling single parents, trying to rebuild their lives. And to everyone's surprise, he asked Ethan to lead the project. Ethan accepted, not because he wanted power or fame, but because he understood what hopelessness felt like. Soon, the tiny garage, once filled with loneliness, transformed into a place of hope, learning, and second chances, while the legendary Mustang continued driving proudly through the city streets as a reminder that sometimes the world gives up on things far too soon. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kind Soul Stories for more emotional journeys that inspire kindness, strength, and second chances.